Morning, folks. Hope you're all good.
Good morning, everybody.
My name's Matt Flanagan. We're going to kick off bang on 12:30 today, so won't be there. But just to make sure that I can see, hear, and know you're there, because obviously it's one way on these webinars. Just in the chat, just pop where you're at, where you are. So I'm just going to put new office, Telford. I'll pop it in there. Cool. Right, that's it. Great. So people can hear me. That's a good start. We're going to start bang on 12:30. We had about 40 to 50 register, so there'll be a few. Hi, Jenny, North Devon. I hope that's wonderful. It's raining here. James, Crew, not a million miles away from us, not a million miles away from Cal. So excellente. Liverpool, thank you very much. Great, cool. We got people in the room. Right, so can everyone see my screen? It should be a lovely picture of me and Callum. Key steps to implementing inventory stream. Just put a thumbs up. That can be absolutely fine if you've got that. So you can see I've got a thumbs up there. Yeah, got it. Right, I've got some other people flying in there. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Great stuff. Right, so we're going to get into this today. It's an educational session. We're going to tell you a little bit about us at the end, but I don't like to do webinars where we waffle on about ourselves for the first 5 minutes and lose people. So we're going to get into the key steps to implement an inventory system. My name's Matt Flanagan. I'm the MD of BlueHub, and I have my colleague, Callum. You can introduce yourself.
I'm Callum, everybody. Good, thanks for having me. I'm one of the senior consultants at BlueHub. I've been with BlueHub about 6 years and looking to share a lot of knowledge today, hopefully.
Cool. So we're going to run for 30 to 35, 40 minutes. That's the aim of this today. It is being recorded. So we'll start to, if you need to go back and review anything, feel free. Okie dokie. So let's get into it. Okay, so a bit of housekeeping. Like to be transparent, we've literally moved office, so everything behind this screen that I'm looking at is boxes. So hoping the internet stakes out. It's the first time we've used Teams as well as a webinar, so we're just going for all first today. So hopefully we'll be okay. If there does happen to be a fire alarm, I've got to go, so excuse that if that happens. But Cal's work from home today, so he might be able to carry it on for us. We're going to go through why SMEs are looking for an inventory system, so what the information that we're getting, the key steps that we follow, and we really advise most SMEs to follow when they're looking at inventory systems. Whether they work with us or not, we're not too bothered. But we'll over the last 2 years we've raised we're picking up 400% more, 4 times more inventory fix-up jobs than we were before, and some of it is because they're not following this type of process. Now that's not because it's a BlueHub process, it's just you need to follow a process which we're going to go through. So this is an educational, you can take it away. If it ends up working with us in the long term, brilliant. If it doesn't and it works for them, brilliant too. Okay, we're going to do a Q&A and then a little bit about who we are. Like I said, I don't really want to take up people's time talking about us at the first 5 minutes. Okay, in the chat, some more people who've joined in the meantime. Just tell us where you are and what you are drinking. So I know some people are in there, and I'm on the good old H2O. Enjoy that coffee. For the coffee, good old H2O. Coffee is the king. Wait for Michael, bated breath, to see what he's having. Excellent. Cup of tea, wonderful. Okie doke. So why are SMEs looking for an inventory system? So we've been doing this about 7 years, 7.5 years now, and we regularly look. Jenny, enjoy your snacks. We regularly look at why people are moving, and there's quite a few different triggers. It's really interesting. So we just listed some down. Cal's going to interject as we go through this with some of what we're finding. But one of the key ones we're finding is unsupported systems. So they might be on old server-based systems which are unsupported, or actually the contractual agreement to stay on it can be also a bit prohibitive to move forward. So that's one of the ones with Cal, isn't it, that we do see. we've seen that quite a lot with sort of access dimensions where there's big books to stay on for another year or 2 years into tens of thousands
Yeah,
around that.
all sorts of different weird and wonderful contracts that people get presented with, and then because most people are much more educated on what's available now, they get presented that contract and think, well, there's actually much better options out there for me. And then that's when they start looking at it and start going on this journey. But unsupported systems is quite a common one that we still face even to this day. It's one we've been facing
Yeah,
the entirety we've been doing
yeah,
this.
absolutely. Need real-time stock position. That can be volumes and values, right? And where we're actually at, we're definitely seeing that is like a core aim of a lot of the clients that we're working with and have been working with.
Yeah, most people have no, not most people, a lot of businesses have 3PLs now, so third-party logistics, and that's where they outsource their warehousing. And it's becoming really common because space and warehouse space is more expensive, so they need to see what they have, where and when in all of the different locations. So being able to have a system that can connect to that 3PL is really, really beneficial and can save a lot of manual work and just general visibility.
Manual integrations, like this is quite a big one now. Integrated systems or people using disparate systems is like pretty common. So we'll have people who are on e-com, like a Shopify front end, and then they're having to manually get the orders out of that into something else. Also, like we are finding a lot with 3PL, so outsourced warehousing, that integration is very manual as well. It tends to see a lot of that at the moment. So that's definitely an area where people are aware that there's better ways of integrating systems, but don't necessarily how and what the ongoing. And actually, I would also mention, I've said this for years, sort of in zero land, but in generally, not all integrations are equal. Some integrations are very good and cover a lot of the detail. Other integrations are very, very immature, minimal, and just get the bare bones, which will help. So that's definitely something that we're seeing more and more people start to look at how they can integrate better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Don't want server based. Cal, that sort of alludes to the first one, doesn't it? Unsupported systems. A lot of that seems to be similar. And I definitely think post COVID, we've seen a lot more people aware of like there's more cloud based systems and what can I do in that area. And if people are on a Shopify, for example, they're already on a cloud based e-com front end. If people are using a Zero or a QBO in the back for the accounting element, again, it's like they're on the cloud base. So what more can I do with there? And just technically, generally for people who are watching this, it's really hard to integrate a piece of cloud software with a piece of server-based software. That is actually, it sounds like it shouldn't be difficult. It's not easy to do that. To make it easy is a lot of technical work and effort to actually make that happen, isn't it, Cal?
Yeah, definitely. And having a server-based system sort of plays into all of these different requirements that we'll see here as well. And as you're saying, it's very, very difficult to integrate with a cloud system. So if people are already on a Shopify or already on some other system, it makes sense to then bring all of their systems into the cloud and not have one little anomaly that's causing a pain.
Yeah. I've gone for as many different transitions I can get on here, by the way, guys. Have you seen all these? Manual processing, which goes to manual integrations. We've seen lots of people doing manual elements, whether it's between systems or between processes. I think we've already covered that to a level. This is becoming more so now, no inventory forecasting. So people are looking to more about how they purchase, what their sales trends are. Are they sitting on stock that they shouldn't be sat on? Are they buying the stock that's fast moving and unaware? So I think we're seeing a lot more of that type of advice and insights needed, aren't we, Cal?
Yeah, a lot of people are buying in advance, 6 months plus, 12 months plus, and people are buying things from overseas in the Far East. So getting that purchase or procurement process accurate is really, really key. The amount of times we hear about stock outs and not having enough items, so having the ability to forecast that's not in a spreadsheet and has a bit of, AI taglines in it and can help make you the right decisions is really important and really beneficial. Actually, it can save money and also can make you more money because you've got more items to actually sell at the right times based on those forecasts.
Yeah. Landed costs. been a big move towards that. Like landed costs pre-COVID wasn't really a thing we really came up with. I think landed costs were pretty standard, pretty stable, but post-COVID, transit costs can be different month to month, even week to week post-COVID. So people are a lot more interested in what their landed costs are in this world, aren't they, Cal?
Yeah, definitely for the Far East shipments that we spoke about and all the things that have happened in all over the world that have sort of fluctuated costs. It's really important when you sell an item, you can see what it's actually cost you. Again, especially during COVID, where, for example, in the building trade, price of plaster was one price one week and another price the other week. If you're selling that item, you need to know, okay, my cost of goods this week was A, cost of goods week 2 was B. So no matter what the business, everybody we work with needs some form of landed cost traceability.
Yeah. FX requirements, this has come up actually more so. A lot of people sell into different regions now, multi-region selling. So FX management is quite important and something that's really starting to be raised. So yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory. Don't need to go into that too much detail. Multiple warehouse requirement, that's also another thing. Certainly, like we've seen more and more people start to maybe address how they work with the EU. Maybe they have a different location, or actually they're just growing and they're acquiring more warehouses and actually need more management of the actual locations of the SKUs within the system and where they're pick packing, fulfilling from, and all those types of things, right, Carl?
Yeah, most businesses that are operating worldwide are going to have a presence in the UK. They're going to have a presence in the EU. The Netherlands is quite a popular
Definitely.
hotspot. So it allows you to ship more efficiently and cheaper, but also give a better price to your customers. So a lot of our clients and a lot of businesses we speak to are having a multiple warehouses, whether they own that warehouse themselves or again, they have a third party logistics company that operates it for them. And by having a system like an inventory system allows you to have like a centralized hub that can then interact with those bases, let's call them.
Yeah. We will touch on 3PL and warehouse and fulfillment a little bit later because that's definitely a changing world at the moment that we see. Yeah. Customer specific pricing, certainly wholesale. People are looking for quantity breaks or loyal customer discounts, those types of things, and that's definitely something where we're seeing people move to that. So that is almost always a requirement, certainly in the wholesale world. And ease of use, I think, buying as well, so people can just log on to a portal for their business and go, right, for me, these are the pricing I can get for these particular products. So pretty self-explanatory, but basic price tiering is definitely needed. And need real-time and true product profit visibility. And I think with landed costs, that sort of started to really come to the fore, where people wanted to know actually how much has that last batch of products that we bought in with the landed costs, and then at my sell rate, what did we actually make on that? And going into inventory forecasting, that also makes sense because you want to buy the stuff that's actually not the stuff that's just selling, but the stuff that's selling at the right profit rates. So I think that's definitely one of the rerules. And real time hasn't got to be to the minute, but it can be to the day or the week. I think real time is largely used, but I think we have to quantify what that actually means. But we're definitely seeing that around. People are asking what is the true cost of and what's the true profit margins on these products at this time with all of these different variables within there. Okay, cool. So some of the reasons that we get, and then another one, someone's found zero QBO or utilizing it, realizes it's quite immature in terms of inventory management. And certainly when you talk about all these links and integrations, it'll do the bare bones. So we are seeing that where people have gone to zero QBO. Okay, that's good, but it doesn't have these certain requirements that we need. So that's something to bear in mind as well. Okay. Key steps to implement an inventory system. 1, define the project. We're going to go through these in a bit more detail. 2, solution research, which I think is a really important part that we need to just have a run through. Project initiation, project delivery, and then maintenance, what you do after the project's in play and the client's working with it. So let's go into defining the project. So Cal, in your role, you help a lot of businesses actually define these. So we have the aims, the success criteria, and picking the team. Just want to touch on these a little bit more.
Yeah, so I mean, when we were putting this together, we were looking at it from a point of view of, okay, what do we actually do as a business? But I also flipped that on its head, and what would I do if I was, in a business, and what would I do if
Totally.
I was going to do this on my own? And the first things that I say to even the people that we speak to, but if I was to do this myself, is you need to define, okay, what do we want to achieve within this project? So when we look back on it, we see it as success, and that's why success criteria plays really well into that. So what do we want to achieve, and what does success look like? So when we get to the end and we're all fatigued and we're disappointed because it's caused loads of stress, we can look at those aims and success criteria and go, actually, you know what? We achieved something here, and that's successful. And also picking the right team. It's really important to have a broad range of different people involved in this project. An inventory system can sometimes be seen as a financial project and just a finance team involved, which is great because then finance works really well, but they're not always the best people to look at operations. So you need to make sure in businesses that you're having people from each department so they can have their input and all those processes play well into each other. So I always recommend someone from operations, someone from finance, and then someone from perhaps sales, because
Yeah.
then all them different departments will interact with this system and they'll all affect each other. So having that core team means they can all have their own input, and all the aims that they want can hopefully be achieved.
Yeah. Agreed. So this is, I think as well, what touched on disappointment, but there's definitely lethargy. Like these
Yeah,
are
yeah.
hard
Fatigue.
change. Yeah, fatigue. Change is difficult, and we always find it's a bit of a roller coaster. It can be really high, a little bit hard, really high, and then at the end there's a sense of you've done it. But it is always good to have that success criteria and the aims, and have we achieved those? And a lot of our job we always find is like just grounding people to the aims of the project, and that's really setting expectations and then keeping them to it. So requirements, we're going to touch on this and go through like some of the things because people think I'm just going to go and pick a stock system and it's got to work with Shopify and Zero and jobs are good and off we go. So we're going to go a bit to that, but just one of the things we tend to find, and from the fix up jobs, what we found is people are turning up to a vendor with a list of problems, not requirements. So you might have 30 things that you need this system to do, 30 requirement points that you need the system to do, but you've got 3 current problems on your current system or your current processes which don't work. People are going to vendors with the 3 problems, go, right, that system, that solves our 3 problems, but it might not do some of the key points of your 30 initial requirements. So do not go out with so here's some problems I've got to solve in my current world. You have to have a holistic view of like what are our requirements in order to go through that. So we do have a requirements capture tutorial and document. If anybody wants that, buzz me after. It's free. There's no cost to it. It's something you can use and your clients. But let's go into this. So requirements, when we're starting to look at the different areas, when we're talking to people about capturing the requirements, sales channels, Cal, what does that mean?
Yeah, so sales channels is really broad, and it could be e-commerce channels, so where they sell online, Shopify, WooCommerce, Magento. It could be individual people like sales reps or sales teams. It could be bricks and mortar, retail points, so where they actually have a till. It could be B2B platforms or EDI functionality where they need to connect to retailers. So sales channels, some people hear that and think, okay, I don't sell online, so that's not me. But sales channels are actually people, places, all different avenues, phone, email, fax in some instances. You need to consider all those points because you need to think, okay, how are all them pieces of the puzzle going to come into my image system? How will I get them orders in there? So sales channels is really important, very broad.
And does EDI come into that?
Yeah, I would say so because it's going EDI, so you're going to have EDI requirements for some certain clients where they're connecting to retailers. EDI does go through a separate platform normally, so you have to use a piece of middleware between the retailer and your inventory system, but they're all going to come through in a similar sort of format. So I would consider EDI as part of sales channels.
So just to give context to people who've not heard of EDI, it's electronic data interchange. And what that is if you're selling, if you've got clients who've got aspirations or potential to work with like Marks and Spencer's, Waitrose, Next, all those really big retailers, they will, that you have to use an EDI platform to link with them. So again, future requirements is, well, we've got a chance of working with Tesco, for example. You're gonna have to think about your EDI future proofing, but that is a sales channel that you would have to work in a certain way. You can't just raise sales invoices and different invoices with a retailer that big. They just don't work with you in that way. So
It's not
if
like a
client,
threshold.
if you're thinking about working with those types of businesses, or you've got clients that work thinking about working with those types of businesses, then that is something that I would definitely consider around your EDI. Okay, purchasing.
Yeah, so this one is actually pretty self-explanatory and you can go a bit in depth, but it's how you buy and how you actually acquire things. So, touching on from the previous slide is how do you forecast at the moment, and do you need to replicate that forecast that you've got on a spreadsheet? Does that need to interact with the system? So it's having the thought process of how that's going to come in. Again, I'm probably contradicting myself as well, but sometimes you look at purchasing and go, oh, we just buy it, its supplier delivers it, but actually you break that down into loads of different detail. Do you use a freight forwarder? Do you manage your own freight? Do you have to send RFQs, so requests for quotes, to multiple suppliers? They're all things that are requirements are going to come into here and you need the system to do. So you really have to break each of these points down actually and define what the process is and what are our individual requirements. So yeah, definitely purchasing.
Yeah. A lot of businesses sometimes we're just a very simple business. We just buy stuff in and sell it, and we've yet to find one who hasn't got some sort of different way. Could be approval processes, right? Slightly internal
Exactly.
approval processes have got to be changed, and then you're looking at approval process as part of your purchasing, how you manage that. So yeah, there's quite a lot. There's always a nuance and nothing to be assumed, I don't think, in any of those, even though they're self-explanatory processes. Inventory control.
Yeah, so again, do you have your own warehouse? Do you outsource your warehouse? Depending on the answer to that question, you're going to go different routes. If you don't have your own warehouse and it's outsourced, do we need an integration? What needs to be included in that integration? What sort of data needs to go back and forth? If we have our own warehouse, what are our processes? Do we need to manage goods in and goods out? Do we want to barcode? Do we have lots of damages? Is there a returns process? So again, it's really breaking it down and defining for all those individual processes, what do we need the system to do? So if you do manage your own goods in and goods out, do we want to barcode? Do we have batch and serial numbers? Do we have expiry dates? So these are the types of things that you need to document and take to these people and say, well, this is what I need the system to actually do. And sometimes it can be overlooked or assumed. Assumed is a big thing that comes in requirements. Each party can assume they understand each other, when really it's not always the case.
Yeah. Now we've put warehouse in here, and we have touched on it, but
Yes.
this is like this is changing quite a lot over the time. So third-party logistics, which is outsourced warehousing, essentially, this wasn't really a big thing 3 years ago, and we've seen a real blow up of this in the last 18 months now, where 3PLs are like definitely a consideration. But to add to that now, it used to be, well, I either got my own warehouse or I'm either going to use a 3PL. But now we're getting this hybrid projects through where for some of the SKUs or products, I'm going to use our warehouse. But then for some of our other products, I just want that to go to the 3PL and they can manage that. It could be regional, it could be type of SKU, it could be type of customer, for whatever reason. And again, so that's a slightly different world of how we're going to work with the 3PL for these SKUs, how we're going to categorize those, and also then our own internal warehouse processes and controls. Again, how do we do that as well? So that's something to consider if you're talking to, if you are a business on this, or you're talking to clients, if you're an accountant or advisor, then definitely warehouse what they're currently doing and maybe what they're aspiring to do, because 3PL is definitely a growth area at the moment. I've put fulfillment here because, again, how you fulfill, if you've got your own warehouse, there's a different fulfillment process. If you're doing a 3PL, well, the fulfillment's over to them. However, when you're doing that, Cal, if you are using a 3PL, you do need some sort of report back of what's been fulfilled and what orders and what's been returned and all those types of things. So it adds a different layer of questioning and requirement, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, you might have a 3PL that, for example, doesn't have any connectivity. Like you can't be connected. So that the answer to that question is then going to have different workflows. So if it can be connected, as I mentioned earlier, but if it can't be connected, then how are we going to transfer that data? Do we have access to that system? Do we need to go into that system and do it manually, or can they give us a spreadsheet each day? So there again, types of things we need to consider before the project, document down, and have how we need to go about this.
And then for like, it's also interesting, isn't it, in this world, because if you are fulfilling to like direct to consumer, for example, D2C, then you can use like there's apps or ecosystem partners now, which will then start to work with the carriers. So if you want to use Every or you want to use whoever, they start to look and go that they'll take the information from the inventory system and go, okay, based on the weight, based on the location, this is your best carrier, and go and get the most the best price and the most efficient, or it could be delivery time or whatever it might be. Those we've now started to get those ecosystems come into this world. So just to name drop, the ShipStation, Ship Theory, ShipBob, all hosts of those where they'll link into an inventory system and then start to manage some of that. So the fulfillment then gets taken, even do the label package, the label printing, and all of those types of things. So yeah, there's a whole world. Fulfillment is like a bit of it can come in all shapes and sizes.
And it's not just a case of picking one of those, actually, because one of those apps might not integrate with every carrier. So I've seen it before where someone said, I'm going to go with ShipStation because I've seen them on the telly and my mate uses them, but they ship with, I'm making this up, it's not true. I use DPD. Well, they don't actually integrate. They do, by the way, but they don't actually have the carrier that you need, but you've just chosen it because you like the name and like the logo. So you have to choose an app based on, does it do what you need it to do? Does it meet your requirements? So your requirement in that case would be, I need DPD and Every to integrate. Who do I then select from that point? And I need my labels to be printed automatically, for example. Okay, which of the providers can do that? So again, it goes much, much deeper than just the app. It's like what you need from the app.
Yeah, absolutely. Accounts, we have accounting integration. I think what we found from doing this for the last 7 years is integrating it and mapping is like, if you've got a chart of accounts and you understand how there's inventory system set up, it can work. A lot of our rescue jobs at the moment are actually that hasn't been mapped properly, but also the accounting slightly changes in the Zero and QBO when you introduce an inventory system, so it's not entirely the same. And also if you're doing consolidated orders from the inventory system through, excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. That can change again your process, how you receive and then how you process. So I think that's an area maybe I feel just gets a little bit overlooked. Like, oh, it's got an integration, it'll be fine. But I always find that if you're using Zero QBO and then you introduce an inventory system, it can be largely different how you start to work in it.
Yeah, because it might open more and more doors having an inventory system in the background. Because, for example, you might have a chart of accounts already set up where you just have one inventory code, one sales code. But now you've got an inventory system, you might be able to have multiple sales codes and multiple inventory codes, and you can link those to the product or your different sales channels. So that then changes the information you get into your accounting system. And as you made quite rightly, if we then start to consolidate orders rather than sending them all line by line, that's going to change your reconciliation process for the better for that point. But there might be just different ways you can approach it. And for example, Amazon with settlement fees and all everything that you get within those periods, that may change as well, because systems that we work with can handle those fees and might change how it then appears in the accounting system. So it's just having that consideration of what you do and what system you're going to choose and how that's going to affect the final piece of the puzzle, which is the accounting system.
Yeah. And last but not least is reporting. So we've got financial reporting, we've got operational reporting, we can have sales reporting. Like, one of the key, I would say, over half of our requirements now is I use sales agents, certainly like wholesale world, and I want commission reports for each of my sales agents, which we can start to get. But again, you need to start to delve into like what reporting. So there'll be financial reporting, absolutely, but there could be financial reporting by brand, by sales channel, by all sorts. And with that linkage with the account, you can do that. But equally, if we're reporting out of the profitability of a SKU or the trend analysis of how we're selling and how we're purchasing, again, you can start to get that. But I think that's like an area that does need to, you probably start with just some mandatory and then build out over time. I think it's hard to get all of those now. But again, in the world of inventory, ERP, there's a whole host of advanced reporting systems which work in that space and with the forecasting. So some of them as well will marry up with your financial systems as well. So there's quite a lot of a different world, I think, in there for just to consider both parties. And then we start bringing sales in if they've got an integrated CRM like a HubSpot or whatever. Then you're trying to get this whole pack of different disciplines covered within the reporting.
Yeah. Reporting is actually the most difficult requirement for us to deliver in a project, because it's also one that doesn't get required documented as a requirement, and we need some sales reports. But that's really difficult for us to deliver. So it's really important, if you do have reporting requirements, what is that report? What are the fields? What is the goal of that report? That then makes
Yeah.
it easier for the vendor or the partner or for yourself to actually see if it can do it or not and choose the right solution for you. Because not all the time, we don't get that all the time. We just get a goal without the actual requirements. It's very, very difficult to deliver.
Okay, we've got 5 points. We've done 15 on that. Don't worry, guys. It's not 15 minutes per point. It's quite meaty. Requirements gathering is important, and then you have to document what that is. All of that information there. So yeah, quite an important part when you are building your own requirements or helping clients build those requirements. Okay, step 2, solution research. So when you've got a list of requirements, you can then start to look at what is available. So you're going to look. We have yet to see what we have never seen a client's only got one system. So I always say systems, whether it's an e-com, a Shopify, a fulfillment partner, a accounting, whatever it might be. There's always systems to consider. With that, you've got to consider the integrations. And as I say, don't always assume the integrations work just as you may think. There's a lot of assumptions around integrations, and integrations are definitely not equal. Future proof. This is a key one. Looking at your transaction levels, where else are you going to be selling in the future? Are you going multi-entity because you're going to start having different entities for different regions? Are you having a change of e-commerce platform? All of those things are really important to consider. So for the now and for the future. And then one here is the implementation approach, right? So there's 3 implementation approaches. You can do it yourself internally, and we've seen those work. I'm not against that at all. We've seen heavily dependent on the vendor, and then we've seen using partners like ourselves. So those are the 3 areas that you would look at for implementation approach. And then you're going to do some, that is a spinner for everyone on a transition. Due diligence, which is then looking at the systems. If you're going to use partners, doing some due diligence on them. That could be case studies, reviews, chats to some of the clients, whatever it might be. The commercials. What's the cost of this? What's the timelines of this? What's the likely cost? So, for example, if you're going down the SaaS route, we would always advocate that you put 10% uplift on your budget every year for your SaaS products. That's hopefully it won't reach that, but you should anticipate that these things are going to go up for whatever reason, whether it's the cost of the actual resource that they sit on, or whether it's they're adding loads more functionality, loads more integrations. It's always going to go up. But one thing you can do is review how you're using it, see if you can turn elements off that you don't use when you go through that. So anything particular on there, Cal, that you'd pick up on when we're looking at this solution research?
Yeah, I think two ones that I'd pick up on are implementation approach. So implementation approach, as Matt said, each of them work fine, but it depends on what you need as a business. So, for example, if you're going to do it yourself, or perhaps you're going to the vendor, then for me that would be a business who has lots of resource internally. They have a resource that is quite knowledgeable in this space, and they also have plenty of capacity to actually take on the project.
Yeah, whether you actually go with a partner or a vendor direct or
to be fair,
internally,
actually, yeah.
Somebody's been through the process or someone's helped implement the system is really good, or someone who's got some understanding of digital supply chain integrations is super useful internally. And we have seen people who've done really well who've had that resource internally and took it on themselves. But I think where maybe you're trying to push that across 4 or 5 different people who've already got a day job, that's super hard for those guys, and they've got stuff to do, priorities happen, and then this doesn't become the priority. So I think your implementation approach, like you need some resource internally. This isn't going to be done to you even if you use a partner. And I think the other thing you have to bear in mind, if you're going to go down a vendor and you're going through an inventory, but you've got these integrations to these different systems, the understanding of the integration will just be from the highest level of, okay, there's a piece of technical documentation which will help you integrate the system. The hows, whys, whats, and the difference you can make and the workarounds, they're not going to know that. And I think it's unfair to actually expect a vendor to know all of that. If you've got a 3PL right now that have integrated or are looking to integrate, and somebody else has written that, The vendor isn't going to know how that's going to have worked. Also, equally, if you do something strange in the accounts process, again, they're not going to pick that up from a vendor specificity. So just be super, I think just setting expectations of what you're going to get from vendors, because sometimes I get a bit of a hard time on, oh, the onboarding is not that strong. Well, onboarding a system to give you base training to get you to use the system is fine. But if you've got all these questions around process and integrations, that's really hard for someone to pick up who is trained on one particular product of what might be a mesh of 4 systems, for example.
Yeah, defining which way you go is essentially asking yourself, what do I need? Do I need help with the system? Or do I need help with my digital supply chain and my processes? If you need help with the system, then you're probably going to go down the vendor route. But if you need more of a managed sort of digital supply chain and help with your processes, that's where you're going to probably want to use a partner, because they're going to have their expertise to add to your point that you're making there. And future proof is the final one that I'll just touch on, is when you're doing those requirements and aims, is it's not just looking at them now, it's looking 3 to 5 years down the line. So what are we going to need at some point? The amount of times we see this with our fix-up jobs where they've selected the system, something's now come up for their business, they realize that system can't do it. Now, you cannot predict every eventuality, but you can make some estimated guesses of where the business might go. So it's just making sure the system is able to cover all of those grounds, or if it doesn't cover them, does it integrate with something that covers the grounds that you might come into in the future?
Yeah. EDI being one, right? We've had people who've come saying we've got an EDI requirement. The current system can't do anything with EDI, so we've got an opportunity with Waitrose, whatever it might be, and we need to look at that and how we're going to do that. So
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Timeline's another one. So getting the amount of people who turn up going, oh, we've got our contract finishes in 2 months. Can we get the system in? And it's like hard, I think, to do that if you want to do it properly. So timeline. Our world is like 4 to 6 months is the realistic time with doing your due diligence and your reviews and doing some of the proving of the concepts. So basically, do not select a system based on a one or a set of problems. Select it based on requirements is the key message there. Okay, project initiation. Mobilize your team, internal as well as external.
Mm-hmm.
Engage your partners, so whether that's your integration partners, your system partners, your implementation partners. Confirm your project plan, what's going to happen when, timelines, and importantly, confirm comms plans. So internal comms is equally important about, whoever's leading the project internally to the business. This is where we're at. This is where we're going. These are the next steps. This is what we're working to. These are the updates to the system, to the project plan, good, bad, or indifferent. Super important. Internal initiation is as important as anything. This will not be done to you, whoever you work with, however a business is taking this forward. This is a joint delivery between the vendor and/or implementation partner and the business itself. Nothing to add there, Cal?
No, I don't think there's too much to add there. I think the comms plan is really important that you pointed out though. Like if especially if there's different parties involved, like what does that look like? Is it a weekly meeting? Is it a bi-weekly meeting? Just to make sure everyone's on the same page. So that's something we try and do when we have different parties involved. Like how can we communicate with them, and what does that regular catch-up look like? Because you're all working on different bits, and you just want to make sure you're always aligned. And that goes for internally as well. Do you have a weekly project catch up to discuss progress and where we're at? So that's really key for me.
Yeah. Okay. On to step 4, project delivery. So we do something called a proof of concept. So what that is, before we actually kick off with the implementation, do a piece of work to assess the key processes and run through them, not having built the system, but make a sandbox or a training environment, just to show some of the key processes, to set expectations and to check we're on the right path. And this is going to be the requirement, and how it will be achieved is going to be acceptable to the client. So we do a lot of work in that. So proof of concept after the requirements gathering. We do system setup, which is getting your data in, getting your integration set up. All of that part is a key part. And if you work with web developers or fulfillment parties, they've got to be engaged at that point as well, because they're going to be part of that world. Then training. Really important part of training is actually the comms. So if they've not been involved in the requirements, so we've had this a few years ago where the warehouse team hadn't been involved in the requirements at all. We turned up to the warehouse training and they said, this will never work. donuts being chucked across the warehouse between the management team and the warehouse team because it had all been supposed as this is how it would work, and there was some fundamental issues. So really important there. That does happen though. Hasn't we donuts being chucked across the warehouse? Workflow reviews will happen, so there'll be tweaks and changes, but there shouldn't be fundamental changes at that point. You then got your pre-go live, which is getting your data in place. So it could be stock reviews, stock adjustments all need to be planned in. Also the cutover from the existing system data, whether that be the current sales and purchasing position as well as you go through that. Checking your integrations are working. Then there's a go live period, which is like 1 to 2 days normally of just being there, hand holding, getting the new processes, getting the core processes. And then your post go live, you tend to do a bit more training actually in post go live, because what you need on day 1 to 7, then what you're going to need on day 14 to day 90 can be slightly different. So there tends to be training after the event as well. And you should really anticipate doing that. A bit like learning to drive, right? You learn to pass your test, then you start driving. So there's an element of that when we're going through that. And all through that, there's change management. This is, as we mentioned earlier, change is hard, shouldn't be underestimated. You can do as much as you want, but there will be times where it feels like a slog, and then other times where it just starts to motor through. Perseverance is really important, but comms and setting expectation is really important. Anything on that, Cal?
Main one for me there is quite selfishly because it's one of the areas that I am involved in. I used to be involved in is proof of concept. Proof of concept, if you get that right, everything else will be a breeze as such, and it will be much easier to manage because proving the concept is defining, okay, how are we going to train someone? What data do we need to set up? What part of the system do we need to set up? What does the go live look like? What do the workflows look like? So if you get the proof of concept right, it makes those stages much easier. If you skip proof of concept and go straight to the system setup, what are we setting up? What are we training? What workflows? What does going live look like? So that's it for me. I always tell people is the most important. Some people don't see the value, but it's so important.
You're really setting expectations of what's about to be received. Otherwise, people will make or have an idea in their mind, a vision of how it's going to be. And you have to really break that. So when you turn up on day 1 and you've just implemented the system, I thought it worked like this, and I thought this had happened, and what about this, and what about that? So you don't give them a chance to actually ask any questions. So it's super important to go through that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, maintenance. So what happens after you've got the system? You've got ongoing support. You'll have that from the vendors you're going to work with. You've got system updates, so the core systems you work with, your e-coms and your inventory, and your if you've got fulfillment partners and your accounting, they all do individual updates. So those are things to keep in mind. You've got integration updates. Excuse my French. There's some buggers on integration updates. So Amazon are really good at not telling you there's any updates, so that can always cause a few problems. And then, to be honest, if the big guys make a change, everyone else just has to follow suit. So if Xero want to make a change, QBO want to make a change, Shopify want to make a change, they carry on merrily and everyone else has to catch up. And how much information any of the other vendors have got at that time is negligible. And actually, it's just you've got to follow the big boys. So that is something to bear in mind as well. There will be integration updates which could affect your workflows or your systems. And then your team changes. Most of our project fix-up jobs at the moment are down to they've lost all knowledge of who set the system up, what the original intent was, and what the workflows are. And this is over and over again as we go through that. So bear that in mind. Document whatever this system is and what it's meant to do, even to the highest level, so somebody else can pick it up. Because really, everyone just has to go back to the drawing board of what are we trying to achieve with these systems set up, and how do we even get there? How do we even unpick this? That can be really costly with these types of systems. Just to touch on this, system support is not the same as solution support. So again, touching on it, if you've got a range of systems and integrations in play, don't expect the main vendor or your main hub of system to know all of your architecture. And that's what we're seeing a lot of at the moment is a couple of areas really where we've had one recently where there's an outsourced warehousing being built, a pipe from the inventory system out. No one knows what that's doing. No one's got any documentation. And actually, the inventory system is getting a bit of a beating because the information actually isn't coming back from the 3PL. But it's actually nothing to do with the inventory system. It's purely this integration is nothing to do with the inventory system. It's just use the API. Cal, I think you had one yesterday, did you? You said?
Yeah, it's choosing the right person to support you for the right things. I have a lead at the moment. They're based outside of the UK, and they currently have one Shopify, but they have two inventory systems, and they've been going back and forth with the vendor for 6 weeks, trying to solve how they can plug one Shopify into two inventory systems. And then the final answer was, oh, it can be done, but it'll be messy. I had a 15-minute chat with them. It can't be done as standard, but there's a way we can achieve it through different third-party apps or perhaps a bespoke integration. So we have the knowledge to be able to provide that solution, but they've wasted 6 weeks going back and forth with a vendor who are there to just support the system. They're not really going to come up with processes and solutions. As we touched on earlier, do you need help with a system or do you need help with processes? And choosing the right person to support you at the right time.
Absolutely right. Okay. So that's your steps. Hopefully we've gone to this detail. We've given a lot of information. You can go back and watch the recording. It will be made available, etc. And this is basically setting the system migration up to succeed. That's how I would present that. This is why the steps are there. So that anyone can take that, use that as a blueprint to go in and a framework to go and build that and deliver that. And I hope people do. So a little bit about us. We help wholesalers, e-com retailers, distributors, manufacturers with these types of systems. So they're operational, inventory control or ERP type systems. We do digital supply chain consultancy. We do inventory implementation, inventory fix-ups, integrations, native and custom as required. That's a growing area. And then a bit about us. We won an award with Sin7 Core. That's one of our primary tech partners. We've been a Zero App Integrator for, I think it's over 6 years now. We're finalists this year in Denver for Implementation Design Expertise, Marketing Leader Award, and Customer Growth. So I've been working with the product for about 7 years. I'm not going to read all those out. You can go and see. Those are some of the testimonials, some of the businesses we've working with. They're all on our website as well. So I'll let you go and have a look at those if you so wish. But Reel, now I've mentioned Reel, if you've got YouTube or your phone switched on, you'll start to see their adverts everywhere. They do some sort of greens. Bondi Sands is fake tan, really big. Marshfield Farm, if you're down in the southwest, they've got all the really cool ice cream, including dog ice cream. So some cool people there. Have you got any questions? We're right on the cusp of 11:15, which is 45 minutes. I don't think we quite go on that. But are there any questions that anybody has? And if not, that's fine. Yeah, so Michael's just gone. That's fine. If there's anything that anybody wants to reach out with, we'll be sending an email out with the recording. So feel free to respond back if there's something in there. You can find myself and Cal on LinkedIn. We've got our website as well, BlueHub. For another day, average landing cost, yes or no? Oh, that's a great question. It's down to the requirements, right? I mean, it depends how volatile your average costing is. A lot of our clients don't want average costing on landed, especially with the volatility of how things are changing. So I'd bear that in mind, James, really, that for me, I think it's a question to the client, but a lot of our clients would really want to know exactly what it is right now with the volatility of lots of these variable costs in and around. That can be at like the land charges internally on land, or it could be the stuff, how it's getting brought in. It's so volatile in each of these areas now that most people want to. Yeah,
Depends on the product. If you're a business that buys items, we speak to a lot of building trade people or building merchants, and they'll buy items and they'll sell. Each time they sell it is based on a markup of what it costs them. So if you're working on an average landed cost in that instance, that's going to be quite difficult because you're seeing. So if you've paid one price for one product, then another price for the exact same product, that's going to be quite hard to mark up. So in that case, they'd want an actual landed cost. So it just depends on the business and the product that they're selling, and also the model of why they need that information. Is it for price markups or is it for just business performance? So yeah, it's a question to the client and what they want to achieve.
Yeah, the requirements doc, Adam has asked this question. It's on YouTube. I will send the link out, but if you're impatient, if you go to YouTube and have a look at BlueHub and then there'll be a gathering requirements. It's a 20-minute tutorial. You'll have to listen to me again, unfortunately, and you can download the Word doc, and that'll give you a starter for 10 to go and have a look at that. You'll have to take my Midland tones for a little bit longer, but yeah, if you go and have a look at that, if you want to go and get that now, feel free, but I will put it in the link. No problems, James. I hope that helps. Yeah, landed cost is a really good requirement gathering point if you're thinking about it as a business or you are working with clients in that space. Okay, I don't think there's any more questions.
One more coming in.
Oh, is it? Oh, Ruth. No worries, Jenny. No worries, Ruth. Thanks for tuning in. Just 3 minutes over. That's not too bad, is it? As I say, recording will be coming out. Any questions you've got, you'll be getting an email off me anyway. But that's been really good to catch up, guys. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Hopefully, we will get some UK sun very soon. Cheers, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.